Viewer discretion is advised for this age-restricted video, as some of this content may be offensive or disturbing. We highly encourage you to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any videos. And remember that your feedback really helps us improve. Thanks for being here. Let's start. Chapter 20 opens with a description of Okonkwo's plans for his future once he returns to Umuofia. Now that he's completed his 7 years of exile, he can finally go home. But before he does, he needs to figure out where he's going to live. His old mud hut has crumbled to dust, and he'll need to build a new house. Plus, he wants to add 2 additional wives to his compound and get titles for his sons. It's been 7 years since he'd made his plans, and he'd thought about them almost every day since then. We see that Okonkwo's feelings toward his daughter Izinma have changed over the past few years. Previously, he would have liked her to become a wife in another clan so that she could produce sons that would carry on his bloodline, but after she'd spent so much time with him, he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. So now he hopes that by the time he returns to Umuofia, both she and her younger sister Obiojeli will be considered marriageable and will choose to remain in his compound. Then he'll have 2 beautiful daughters to attract suitors. We also find out that after leaving Banta, Okonkwo has completely forgotten about Nwoi. He isn't upset that his son left him or that he's converted to Christianity. While he still beats himself up over the fact that Izinma is a girl, he is happy to hear that she and her sister agree to wait 2 more years before getting married. As the chapter progresses, we get a glimpse of the new Umuofia that Okonkwo is returning to. During his exile, the Christian church has grown strong and the white men have taken over the judicial system, imposing their own rules of government. They're harsh and arrogant, and Okonkwo can't understand why the villagers haven't driven them out. So he asks Obirika, who's one of the few people he trusts, what has happened to his people. Obirika responds by telling Okonkwo that the church has made many converts, particularly among the poor and discontented, and that the arrival of the white man has weakened the ties of kinship in Umuofia. Okonkwo still holds out hope that his clan will turn back to their traditions, but Obirika says it's too late. Many of the clansmen are on the side of the white men, and there's nothing Okonkwo can do about it. He and Obirika visit Anito, an old friend of Okonkwo's who lives on the edge of town. A few months earlier, Anito killed a man with whom he had a dispute over the boundaries of their farms. He took his case to the clan court, but the elders decided that he was not at fault. Anito didn't agree, however, and refused to pay the fine imposed on him. Instead, he went to the white man's court and won his case. When the man he killed sent his family to collect the fine that the court had ordered Anito to pay, Anito flew into a rage and murdered them all. The government heard of the crime and sentenced him to death. Instead of paying his fine and being exiled from the village, Anito preferred to die. Obirika believes that the hanging is a bad omen for the clan and laments the foolishness of the villagers for accepting the ways of the white man. To top it off, he tells Okonkwo that the white man is very shrewd because he came in peace and appeared to have no interest in the Africans, who therefore let him stay. The wily foreigner gradually undermined the social structure of the villages, and now everyone has fallen under his spell. The chapter ends with Okonkwo and Obirika sitting in silence, as they consider what to do next. A feeling of doom settles over them. They know that everything will never be the same. At the beginning of chapter 21, we see that while many people of Umuofia are not unhappy with the influx of money brought into their community by the white traders, others aren't so sure. One of these is Akuna, who finds himself frequently visited by the missionaries led by Murdoch Brown. Although the majority of villagers want nothing to do with the foreigners, Mr. Brown is persistent. In their last conversation, Mr. Brown asked Akuna why he worshipped the false god, Ulu, instead of the true God. Akuna responded by saying that his clan also has just one god, Chukwu, who created the world and the other gods. Brown replied that there are no other gods. He pointed to a nearby carving and stated that it was just a piece of wood. Akuna agreed that it was a piece of wood, but wood created by Chukwu. Neither man converted the other, but each went away pondering the meaning of the other's words. During this time, Mr. Brown hears from one of the members of his flock that Nwoi, who is Okonkwo's son, is attending a training college for teachers. Soon after hearing this news, he visits Okonkwo in his village to tell him that Nwoi is now employed as a teacher in the mission school. But when he gets to Okonkwo's compound, he is chased away with threats of violence. Meanwhile, the district commissioner has come to Umuofia and has been talking with the clan leaders about building a road through the center of the town. When he hears that Okonkwo's daughters are considered marriageable, he invites himself to dinner at Okonkwo's compound, hoping to secure one of them as a bride. However, he has no luck, as Okonkwo treats him coldly. At the end of the chapter, Mr. Brown's health begins to fail and he sadly leaves his flock. Although he hadn't been able to convert many people during his time in Africa, he realized that he had learned a great deal from them. Mr. Brown is eventually replaced by the zealous and unforgiving Reverend Smith, who insists that the only right religion is his own and tries to convince the Africans that their traditional beliefs are devil worship. He clashes with many of the clan leaders, including Akuna, who continues to debate religion with him despite the fact that their discussions always end in anger. Things Fall Apart is a novel written by Nigerian author Chinua Achebe. It is his best-known work and was published in 1958. The story is about the fictional Igbo village of Umuofia and follows the life of one of the village's most respected members, Okonkwo. Over a 9-year period, the village experiences profound upheaval as a result of British colonization and the introduction of Christianity. The effects of colonialism on African society are examined through Okonkwo's tragic fall from grace. Many readers consider Things Fall Apart to be one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. In this episode, we're looking at Things Fall Apart chapters 22 and 23. But before we begin, please remember to support us. If you love what we do here, then you can help us keep doing it. Also, stick around until the end if you want to test your knowledge with a quick quiz on the episode. Chapter 22, Reverend James Smith, who is the new resident white missionary, does not believe in being neighborly. In other words, he is not into Mr. Brown's policy of restraint. According to Smith, the heathens need to be obedient to the word of God and they need to do it to the letter. He thinks that the converts need to shed all of their old ways. And since Mr. Brown is too tolerant, he wants to go back to England. But some of the converts like Enoch are quite happy with this because they don't need Mr. Brown's policy of restraint anymore. And for Enoch, this is really lucky because his father was a priest of the old religion, specifically the masquerade society known as the Egwugwu. So he is now working against his own tradition. Let's go a little deeper on Enoch. He thinks that the other converts think he is mad. And maybe he is a little mad. But Enoch is a character whose mentality is akin to a zealot. For example, he knows that the best seat in church is right in front of the white man, and that is exactly where he sits. Whenever he goes to church, during services, he stares at the people in the back, particularly those belonging to his family, to show them how superior he is. And he believes that the missionaries preach every sermon just for him. After one of the sermons, he finds himself saying, "I knew it," even though no one had asked him anything. But he was convinced that the missionary must have been talking about him. So why is he always so satisfied? Well, it's because he is never challenged. He is never called out. Why? Because he is not an average convert. He is filled with righteous anger. He hates his family. He curses his father and his mother, and he hopes to be punished first among his people when the time comes for retribution. You know, he is just itching to be persecuted, now. Enoch is very lucky because his zealousness gets rewarded. He gets to play a pivotal role in the conflict between the church and the clan. The next part of the chapter focuses on the annual ceremony that honors the earth deity. But there is a problem. Some boys have stolen one of the Egwugwu masks. Now, normally, it is not allowed to show one's face during the ceremony. However, because the mask has been stolen, they need to find the thief and they need to do it quickly. But the thief is none other than Enoch. And in a fit of rage, he takes off his own mask and shows it to everyone. The elders consider this a very serious crime. They say that Enoch has killed an ancestral spirit and he will face the consequences. The next day, the Egwugwu come to punish Enoch, and they start by burning down his compound. They then go to the church and demand that the Christians give them the man who showed his bare face to them. When Reverend Smith refuses to give him up, the Egwugwu become angry and threaten to destroy the church. But Smith stands firm. Now, the language barrier creates a misunderstanding between the two groups. Smith is adamant that he won't allow them to touch his church. And he tells his interpreter to go and tell the Egwugwu that he is forbidding them from touching the church. But the interpreter changes what Smith said. He tells the Egwugwu that Smith has forbidden them from destroying the church, but he has left the question of cleansing the village in the hands of his interpreter. The Egwugwu, of course, think that they have a green light to burn the church down. And they do exactly that. The next day, the district commissioner comes to visit the church. And when he sees it in ruins, he is annoyed. He asks the Christians why they didn't call him right away instead of waiting for the church to burn down. Chapter 23 starts with the famous line, Okonkwo was almost happy again. The church is burned down and the Egwugwu have made their point. They are not interested in killing the Christians or driving them away. But the men of Umuofia are still on their guard, and they remain so for the next 2 days. On the third day, the district commissioner returns from his tour, and he calls for the leaders of Umuofia to come and meet with him. They go, but only armed with machetes, because guns would be unseemly. Upon entering the commissioner's office, they put their machetes on the floor, but a group of soldiers surprises them and handcuffs them. After they are jailed for several days, they are covered with bruises and cuts. The court messengers tell the people of Umuofia that they must pay a fine of 250 bags of cowries or their leaders will be hanged, and by asking for more money. These messengers will make a profit as intermediaries. A kind of bail is set at 200 bags of cowries. The next day, the town crier announces an emergency village meeting. And the next morning the men of the village go to collect the bags of cowries. Even as Inma comes home from her 28-day visit to her future in-laws. She brings along her mother and a few sisters to help with the task. Things Fall Apart will be available in audio format soon. Thanks for listening. Now it's time for a short quiz. What is the name of the new missionary in town? What is the name of Enoch's father? Where do the Egwugwu demand that the Christians bring Enoch? True or false? Reverend Smith is a patient and understanding man. What is the main reason that the district commissioner calls for a meeting with the leaders of Umuofia? How much money do the messengers ask for? What type of punishment do the messengers threaten to inflict if the fine is not paid? Who is the only person who comes home during this chapter? Okay, let's go over the answers. Reverend James Smith, Enoch's father, is a priest of the Egwugwu. The Egwugwu demand that the Christians give them Enoch. Reverend Smith is not a patient and understanding man. The district commissioner is annoyed by the burned-down church, and he wants to talk to the leaders of Umuofia. The messengers ask for 250 bags of cowries. The messengers will not hang the leaders if the fine is not paid. Only Azinma comes home. All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you for watching. This is a summary of Things Fall Apart, chapters 24 and 25, chapter 24, after their release. The prisoners return to the village, with such brooding looks on their faces that the women and children were afraid to even acknowledge them. Even the birds had stopped singing. The whole village was filled with an unnatural silence. The only sounds were the buzzing of a few flies and the rustling of the palm branches. Azinma took Okonkwo some food, and she and Obirika noticed the whip marks on his back. Just as they had predicted in court, the white man had flogged Okonkwo. The village crier then announced that there would be another meeting the following morning and told everyone to go home and bring their best yams to show their support for the imprisoned men, filled with a sense of foreboding. The villagers did as they were told and prepared for the meeting. That night, Okonkwo did not sleep much. His mind was filled with thoughts of the coming meeting. By the time the sun rose the next morning, he had already made up his mind about what he would do. He put on his war dress. It consisted of a smoked raffia skirt and a tall feather headgear. His shield was in good condition, but he needed to sharpen his two machetes. He remembered how he used to be a great warrior and how brave he was when he won the Egwugwu wrestling match. But those days seemed long gone. Now he was just a tired old man living in a changed world. He looked around to see if any neighbors were awake. He did not want them to see him putting on his war dress. For a moment, he considered how his actions might look to others. Would they think he was mad? Was he really going to fight the white man with nothing but a shield and two machetes? What would happen to his family if he was killed? These questions flashed through his mind like lightning. But by the time they reached his feet, he had already made up his mind. He would die trying to stop the white man. When the meeting started, men from all 9 villages of the clan arrived. Many of them carried yams, kola nuts, and bundles of white cotton cloth. There were about 300 men present. The first speaker lamented the damage the white man and his church had done to the clan. He said that the pagans had sacrificed their gods and ancestral spirits. Such a thing had never happened in the history of their clan. If they went to war with the white men, they might have to spill the blood of their own clansmen. The meeting continued late into the afternoon, and many speakers had finished and left before Okonkwo even got a chance to talk. Suddenly, 5 court messengers strode into the crowd. Their leader held up his hand and told everyone to be quiet. No sooner have the words left the messenger's mouth than Okonkwo cut him down with 2 strokes of his machete. A tumult rose in the crowd, but it was not the kind of sound Okonkwo hoped for. People were asking why he had killed the messenger. Some people were saying he should be tied up and taken to the district commissioner, but before anyone could stop him, Okonkwo wiped his machete free of blood and disappeared into the crowd, realizing that his clansmen would not go to war. Okonkwo walked away slowly. Chapter 25. The next morning, the district commissioner arrived at Okonkwo's compound. He found a small group of men sitting outside. "Where is Okonkwo?" he asked. "He is not at home," they replied. The commissioner asked again, "Where is Okonkwo?" "He is not at home," the men replied again. The commissioner became angry and said, "Do any of you know where he is?" Still, they answered, "We don't know." The commissioner ordered his messengers to surround the men and threatened to imprison them all if they did not tell him where Okonkwo was. Obirika stood up and said, "I know where he is. Take me to him and I will show you." The commissioner agreed, and Obirika led him and the group of clansmen to a small bush behind Okonkwo's compound. They found Okonkwo's body dangling from a tree. He had hanged himself. Obirika explained that suicide was a grave sin and his clansmen could not touch Okonkwo's body. However, they had sent for strangers from a distant village who would help take the body down. "You must help us," Obirika pleaded with the commissioner. "Our custom demands that only strangers may touch the body of a man who has taken his own life." The commissioner asked why they couldn't do it themselves, and Obirika said that their hands would become evil if they touched the rope. The commissioner agreed to help, but he left the actual work to his messengers while he stayed to watch. Obirika could not hold back his anger and lashed out at the commissioner. He blamed him for Okonkwo's death and praised his friend's greatness. The commissioner watched as the messengers cut the rope and lowered the corpse to the ground. He thought to himself that he had gained some insight into the customs of the natives. Later, when he wrote his book about Africa, he planned to include a section about the suicide of the great warrior, Okonkwo. He had already chosen the title, "The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger." All right, that's what happened in chapters 24 and 25 of Things Fall Apart. I'm anonymous. If you liked this video, please hit the like button below and leave a comment. Subscribe to my channel to get notified when I post new videos. I'm making videos for my subscribers every single day, so check back often to see what I've uploaded. Thanks for watching.